Okay, with video 3, we're going to look at animation and this keyframing interpolation. And that word interpolation, what it means is it's really just when we're looking at keyframing and animating, it's looking at, because we're going to be really focusing on keyframing, which is creating points where you might say, I need to animate from here to here. And what After Effects does a really good job with this interpolation is saying, okay, since you've set this point and this point, I've got to figure out that space in between of what's going to happen for the movement. So that's really what the interpolation means. So we're going to look at our text properties and really going in and starting to manipulate this down here within our timeline panel and these properties. But one thing I did want to show you, I finished on the anchor point last time and talking about how we can grab this pan behind tool and moving around. Another cool thing, I deselected it. One thing that's really cool that you can do is there's some other keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to grab my anchor point all the way out here because it's kind of hard sometimes to say, hey, I want to center up exactly. So if I do want to say hold Control Alt Home, as you notice, it jumps right to the center. Okay, so that's dropping into the center, and you can do that with any type of layer if you really want to make sure you've got and want to put that anchor point right in the center of that layer is Control Alt Home. And maybe something else cool, I'm just going to do another shortcut. I can grab this over here, and this is just another way to align. If I do just Control Home, it jumps right to the center. So that's a really cool keyboard shortcut for some of you guys. So I can always repeat that to you. But we're going to jump in and look at this and going ahead down into our timeline, and we're going to start to manipulate, looking at just our transform properties down here. So we've already looked at the anchor point kind of. We can manipulate that. But a lot of times you want to keep that the same. But let's go ahead and look at the first one, position. All right. So we notice right now where it sits position-wise, it's 960, 540. Okay. And a good option is if I maybe wanted to make this move across the screen, I might want to go down my timeline. But I might say, hey, I want to by 2 seconds have this hit here. Now we're going to look at this little stopwatch. This is where the start of animating and keyframing will begin. Anything that has a stopwatch means it will be able to keyframe. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, and notice that it now creates this what looks like it's been selected, and it's got the time watch, or the hour hand, or the hand that will move around, and it creates this little thing that says there is a keyframe, and it gives us this diamond shaped figure on this layer. And okay, there's no movement yet, but they're saying I want to make sure that by 2 seconds I have this text in this position. So now if I go back and maybe go to 0 seconds at the very beginning, I can use over here my arrowhead just to kind of maybe I just want to move, left or right. I can do so on this way. I can also, with the selection, I'm going to undo that, Control Z. I'm going to grab my selection tool, which is already actually selected, and maybe I wanted to move it. Okay, and notice when I move it, I have this line that's created, and we've got all these dots in between. That's the interpolation. That's saying, okay, that depending on how far I move it, okay, I've got to make sure that it's hitting these spaces between 0 seconds to 2 seconds. Okay, so I can do so, and maybe just by doing this, and I go ahead and I click my space bar, it's again rendering it out, but it's showing that's the transformation. That's where it's going to go from point A to point B. Now I'm going to undo that, and undo that again, and undo that because I moved it quite a few times. Actually, I'm going to redo that. Control Shift Z to go back ahead and put that keyframe right there. But maybe I do want to make sure it's on a straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the text, hold Shift, and I'm going to pull it all the way out. And notice that again, that doesn't matter where I move my arrowhead, I'm pulling whatever first direction I pull from that center point. Since I hold Shift and pull to the left, it's going to stay on that horizontal axis. If I wanted to maybe say, okay, Shift and pull up, my text layer, grab that, hold Shift, and pull up. Again, now I'm not going to be able to change that unless I come to point and come over. So we've got that, and it creates our second keyframe. So now we're looking at from point A to point B. All this space in between is what's going to be keyframing. So again, I'm going to go ahead and show you if I render it out and do a RAM preview. We've got our basic text. Okay, we've got our first little bit of movement. It's not very exciting, but we're creating a little bit of movement. So that's really cool. Now, with these keyframes, I want you guys to notice that we have these diamond shapes, okay? And it's going to be just very constant. It goes from nothing to moving at a constant rate and stops. All right, so we might want to say, hey, I want to change that. I want it to ease out or ease in, and this is going to be one thing that you're going to play with throughout the semester with movement, is figuring out movement and how you're going to make it look more realistic than something that's very just bland like this. So I'm going to go ahead and select by just dragging and dropping over those, and I'm going to right click on one of the keyframes, and I'm going to look at this keyframe assistant. And with the keyframe assistant, we're going to have this ease in, and ease out. And again, looking at your keyboard shortcuts, F9, I think I hit quite a bit. My hands usually from Control Z to F9 quite a bit within when I'm working in After Effects. So, but I'm going to go ahead and click Easy Ease. And you notice now it created these more of like hourglass looking shapes. And when I scrub along, I'm going to notice that kind of doesn't start right away. It kind of eases out, hits a point, and when I hit the end, it's going to ease back into that final keyframe. And let's go ahead and play it through. So you notice it kind of stops a little bit. See how it slows down just a little more? So it makes it look a little more realistic than having to kind of from A to B with all that center point. And if I wanted to, something that's really cool, and this is the last thing I'll show you, is maybe I wanted to come in, hold on the frame for a little bit, and maybe then go out the same way it came in. I can do so by taking these and just Control C. I can copy them. Let's get to 4 seconds exactly. And I'm going to control, well, it doesn't matter where exactly, but I just copied and pasted those. Now, we're going to notice that because it animated in the same way, it's going to jump in off between these two because it's saying from this point I'm in the center. But because this point right here is that very first point, it says, okay, you have to go back off screen. Okay, and then come back in. So that's not what I wanted to do, but something instead of having to copy this and change these within our properties over here, I might just take these two, select them, right click, go back to that keyframe assistant, come down here and it says time reverse keyframes. And this is going to be great help throughout the semester because now I do that, it just reversed these two. And so now what I have for animation, well, let's go ahead and look at it. We're going to have, it's going to slide on and then slide off the same way. Something very basic. So text slides on, holds for those 2 seconds, and slides back off. Very cool, nice and simple. So that's looking at animation for the first set before we move into understanding a little more about that movement, especially with your Easy Ease, looking at the time graph editor, and getting into some more animating features with text.